through here today. I am going to go ahead and actually, let's see, is Angela Ruggiero. If you've won 4 Olympic medals, please announce yourself. All right. Oh, she's just texting me. She's having trouble with Zoom. Typical. She can win 4 medals, but she can't launch Zoom. That's all right. We can't all be good at everything. Okay, everybody. We are going to go ahead and get started. It's great to see everybody. I think I know most of you, but if you don't know me, my name is Gina Waldhorn. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Sports Innovation Lab. My kind of co-host today is Sarah Gottfredson, CEO and founder of Trailblazing Sports Group. And really, we're just thrilled to bring everybody together today to wrap up. It's been an incredible year, and we want to just spend a little bit of time with each other to recap and talk about some of these incredible milestones and achievements that the club has, really achieved this year. 2, we are super excited to give you a sneak peek into the results of our 2024 Women's Sports Media Benchmarking Survey. We'll give a quick recap of what that is, why we do it. We have not released these results publicly. We appreciate it if you do not release these results publicly yet. It is one of the benefits of being in the Women's Sports Club that we bring this data and research to you first and kind of get your feedback and let you get the sneak peek of it. So we're going to share that with you today. And we're going to talk a little bit about what comes next, 2025. And as we like to do in these member meetings, we want to hear from you. So Sarah and I will not dominate the conversation today. We want to hear from the members. And really, as we start planning our 2025 calendar and focus areas and priorities, we want to make sure that we do that with your goals in mind, because ultimately, we designed the Women's Sports Club to be an executive community that facilitates and accelerates media spending in women's sports. And everything we do is very intentional to deal make and to help further that mission. And so if you've got something that you really need that you think can help further that mission, we want to hear about it and we want to see how we can integrate it into our programming next year. That sound good? Sarah, miss anything? Want to say a quick hi?
Hi all. No, I'm excited to share the survey results with you and just sort of cap the year, and hopefully you all are feeling great momentum heading into 25. I know from Sports Innovation Lab, Women's Sports Club, and Trailblazing, we're feeling that momentum, and it's time to capitalize on it and keep the gravy train rolling. I know.
Yeah, what a year. What a year. Turns out we were all right. But we still have work to do. So, okay, let's start with a big thank you. So we would not have been able to make the difference and run the club that we ran without our members. So a huge thank you for helping us create not just another opportunity for networking, but an opportunity to further data, to further research, to build products, to launch marketplaces, and to network and have a good time. So a huge thank you to all our members. We know this isn't your job to be a member, and we're all very busy. So, we're very honored to have you in our membership. And to that end, we all broke new ground for women's sports. So we wanted to just highlight a few things that we achieved as a club and as a membership base this year. Number one, in 2024, we hosted the first ever IAB Newfront for women's sports. This is a really big deal. Women's sports historically was at best a sliver of a media company's sports sliver of their Newfront. And we have partners on like Scripps who are continuing to change that and make women's sports a bigger part of their presentations. But for the most part, women's sports has never been given the type of spotlight that we and the club were able to give women's sports by hosting this first ever IAB Newfront, where we also launched a dedicated programmatic audience marketplace for women's sports to help expand reach, and the first ever fully comprehensive media marketplace just for women's sports, which is the Trailblazing Marketplace, which included more than 30 of you all's inventory packages in it, which is massive. Nobody has ever brought together that many different external partners with everything from golf tournaments to athlete NIL sponsorships to merchandise to championships to podcasts, all in one place to just provide more scale, make it easier, and make the media perform better so that we could get more brands and agencies spending on women's sports. So this was a huge deal. The NewFront, the marketplace, it couldn't have happened without you guys in the club. So pat yourselves on the back. We're going down in the history book for this first ever achievement this year. Off the back of that, Sports Innovation Lab was also able to launch our women's sports audiences, which are the first truly dedicated programmatic audiences for women's sports built on deterministic data. So if you guys are not using these yet and you're not really sure how or if you should or how it works, send me an email, send me a chat, email audience@sportsilab.com. They're both great for properties and publishers. So if you're selling media and you need to expand your reach outside of your owned and operated media in your media packages that you're selling, and you maybe want to even lower that effective CPM to brands, talk to us. That's what our programmatic audiences can do. They can be built specifically for you. They can help find NWSL fans or WNBA fans or volleyball fans or women's rugby fans, and they can expand that reach for you. And if you're trying to drive acquisition, tune in, game tickets, merch for your own brands as a property or publisher, we can help with performance on those too. And if you're a brand or agency, you know that we're pushing these audiences to drive that scale and performance for your sponsorships. Because if we drive more media into women's sports, but it doesn't perform well enough, then it's not going to be invested in the next year. So we really want to make sure that agencies check those boxes and see that media performing really, really well. And we can do everything customized based on actual purchases, based on propensity scores. Like, let's bring the rigor and the technology of other sectors to women's sports. And that's what audiences do. So if you're not using them, if you want to tour, if you need help, reach out to us. These are first time audiences ever launched. No one's ever done it for women's sports, and we want to help you guys tap into it. Our next big achievement, we expanded our membership like gangbusters this year. So we ended up closing the year at over 500 women's sports club members. But what's really important is we brought in a lot of new decision makers from agencies, from brands, and from emerging leagues, kind of new first-time women's leagues, from the Unrivaled to the women's rugby, and the brands. Sorry, I should say some of these holding companies and agencies that truly represent spending power, that have real champions inside who love and care and used to play and recognize the value of women's sports, who are spearheading bringing women's sports into those agencies with a land and expand model. So shout out to Canvas, to Allied, to who else, Sarah, this year? Do we have some amazing champions who brought us in for the road shows?
CAA, we
Yeah,
had
CAA.
Initiative.
Just fantastic. Yeah. We really, they're finding those champions at these agencies and testing with your brands. It just really rounded out our membership base, brought the right voices to the table, brought the right decision makers to the table. So if you need an updated directory, reach out to us. So we are finalizing an end of year directory. Let us go ahead and send that, because all of these people are people we want you to know. So if there's anyone in this directory, add a brand, add an agency, add a league, add a team that you want an introduction to, please use Sarah, myself, Hallie, reach out to the team at the Women's Sports Club, and we'll help facilitate those introductions. Because again, we measure our success on deal making. So if you're not pitching, if you're not winning deals, the club's not doing its job. So reach out for this updated directory. But thank you to all of our new members this year. We're just so thrilled with the size and the quality of the membership base. So those are some of our highlights. Just the growth, the success of the club this year, and we couldn't have done it without our members. And the other thing that we were able to achieve is another round of our annual media spending benchmarking survey. This is the first and only of its kind that is specifically dedicated to understanding how much is being spent and how much is planned to go into women's sports media. So the way that we run the survey is we go out, we are asking brands and agencies to complete the survey. We validate that they are indeed a brand or an agency representing a brand. And then we ask them about current spend for 2024, planned spend for 2025, and we ask them detailed questions about how that spend is allocated across men's and women's sports, and a few other questions to help us round out the perspective of the brands and agencies for the year. So the first thing that's great is we had solid representation this year from across the industry, including some of the most important categories that are spending in men's sports that are probably just starting, but maybe haven't transitioned or are spending enough, I would say, in women's sports. So retail, entertainment, pharma, auto, shout out CarMax. We got a lot of great companies in Toyota who are doing amazing things in women's sports. So we have a nice representation of cross category for those who responded to the survey. So what did we find? Well, when it comes to just overall sports investment, as a percent of their total media budget, of those brands and agencies we surveyed for this survey benchmarking study, about a quarter of them spent more than 51% of their total media spend in sports. So that helps us really understand that we're speaking to the right folks in this survey. We're really looking to understand, for those who are investing in sports media, how are you allocating it to men's and women's, and are we seeing a shift? So here again, you can see the spend allocation of total media spend and how much of that just goes into sports. Men's or women's, we're just talking sports. Now, out of that spend dedicated to sports media, we asked, what percent are you spending in 2024? What did you spend on women's sports? And on average, the brands we asked spent an average of 20% of their sports media budget on women's sports in 2024. And why this is great, it's still not the 80% going to men's. It is more than double what we saw in 2023, which was that the average brand spent 9% of their sports media dollars on women's sports, and 91% of their media spend in sports on men's sports. So this is absolutely moving in the right direction, seeing an average allocation more than double from the year past. And you can see a little bit more detail on how that exactly breaks out. We're also seeing a planned increase in investing in women's sports year over year. So more than 80% of brands reported that next year, 2025, they were planning to increase their spend in women's sports. Again, when we look year over year, this is a benchmarking survey. This year, we saw that 1 in 3 brands who were planning to increase their spend were planning to do so by more than 10%. So whatever they spent in 2024, what they spent in 2025 was going to be greater than a 10% increase. 1 in 3 brands. That's up from only 1 in 10 brands in 2023. So about 10% or less than brands in 2023 were going to increase their spend in women's sports more than 10%. It was mostly around the 1 to 5%. So not only did we see more brands spend and allocate more towards women's sports this year, when it comes to increasing their spend next year, they're increasing it by a greater amount. And that is key, because if we're increasing it by 1% or 2 or 5% year over year, it's good, right direction, but it's going to take us a century before we reach equality and parity. So seeing those planned increases jump and seeing more brands planning to increase by a greater amount, absolutely right direction. Good job, everybody. And then, is it in here? Oh, it's not in here, but one other stat that came out of this is when we looked at the movement of dollars from men into women, it was about 7%. So if we see most brands, 1 in 3 brands were planning on increasing their spend in women's sports by more than 10%, but they were only moving 7% out of men's into women's, I think that's a really interesting and positive sign. because it means brands are recognizing the value of the women's sports fan as a consumer segment, and they're finding money from other sources. So they're not just taking from men, they're creating new budgets. They're finding other dollars. And that's a really positive signal. So it's not just a, what's the saying, robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's not just a one-to-one. And I think, Sarah, you do a great job about talking through like storytelling and why it's not apples to apples. We can't just keep comparing men's to women's. And I think this is a true signal that brands are creating more dollars, finding more dollars, and seeing women's sports not just as another sports channel, but as a channel and a media and a communication tactic to reach a high value customer. And they're creating the budget to do that.
Yeah, and I would just say, all of the research that we've seen and you all have seen is talks a lot about how Gen Z is watching and consuming more women's sports than any other demographic. So I do think that marketers are chasing that Gen Z consumer, and so naturally the money is going to go to women's sports because that is where they are, as well as men's sports. So the share of sports, I believe, is going to continue to increase because that's where eyeballs are. And I think women's sports will continue to grow proportionally as well.
Absolutely. So another, question that we asked is, what type of media are you looking for? And specifically, not just a self-reported survey, we were actually able to go look at what percent of brands who are buying programmatic audiences from Sports Innovation Lab were buying the women's sports audience. So this is really key. And what we found is that within the more than 2,000 brands and agencies that are currently buying Sports Innovation Lab programmatic audiences, 22% of them are buying women's sports audiences. So this is huge. Almost a quarter of the entire programmatic media marketplace that Sports Innovation Lab runs, almost a quarter are buying women's sports. And this is really important because this also signals that more brands and agencies are looking for ways to test and learn. And I think, Sarah, you can comment on this too. They're really, it is uncharted territory for a lot of brands. And while we understand that sometimes, look, a sponsorship or a patch or, there just has to be a price tag that makes sense for a property or a publisher, sometimes it's a little bit too much for a brand or an agency to bite off, to get started in women's sports. So finding ways to allow them to use digital and addressable media to quickly and efficiently prove the performance value of women's sports media is critical. And we hear that over and over about testing and learning and kind of finding ways into women's sports. And so we think, again, that almost a quarter of all brands buying the programmatic audiences are rotating in and buying women's sports media is a fantastic signal to the market that if you give them the opportunity to test and learn, and if you give them something that can easily plug into an existing plan like a programmatic audience, they're going to do it. So this is quick adoption, and we're really excited to see this uptick. Anything else, Sarah, you want to add? Any other stats or anything? This kind of wraps up, like I mentioned, we have a few other interesting stats that'll come out later this month from the survey, but we wanted to give you guys first peek at these fantastic results, which really in summary do show the media spending improving, increasing at real tangible numbers, especially year over year from 2023. But for sure, 20% is not 50%. So we still have room to push and to create more opportunities for spending for brands.
Yep. Gina, remind me, did we do any questions about the platforms? Like, are they spending on linear or CTV or digital?
We did.
That was interesting to this crew.
Yes, we did. What surprised me most about the answers there is linear was still number one, but it was it was not by 20%. It was like by 10 or less than percent. So we were really seeing a evening out of distribution of spend across channels. It didn't, the spike didn't look like this. It looked like this. And
Right.
So again, I think as we always talk about those kind of like testing and learning, I think agencies and brands are really interested in kind of putting the money in different channels, finding places where they can use incremental budget like addressable media, and kind of get started. And that's why we're not just seeing what we had in years past, which was complete domination by linear or traditional sponsorship, seeing the NIL, seeing the programmatic, seeing the OTT, almost, get closer to linear levels, I think is a great sign.
Yeah, I would just say, I think a couple of things there. One, as we talked about at the NewFront, we want for those brands and agencies on this call, we want you to continue to spend in big linear moments because that's really important. We have our friends at Scripps on, I think Deidre at ESPN is on. It's really important for the whole ecosystem to continue to put dollars in those places in linear. And it's really important to continue to fuel storytelling and to partner with digital platforms, CTV, newsletters, programmatic, because storytelling is the way that women's sports is just going to continue to grow. It's just what we saw in men's sports for the past 50 years. Those newspapers, radio, now digital. And so I think just looking at your sports media plan with that in mind, linear and digital, will be really key in 25. Someone have a question? Oh, Linz, I think you're not on mute.
Or a sneeze. We'll take a question or gesundheit. Awesome. So those results are going to come out in full later this month. So look out for those. We'll send an email and announce them, but wanted to give you guys a sneak peek. And again, if using any of this data is useful in your own sales collateral, in your business cases, to your brands or your clients, let us know how we can be helpful. We can dive into the data with you or spend a little bit more time going through the results of this survey with you. And like we said, we powered a lot of in real life deal making at our events this year. Events will continue to be a part of everything we do at the Women's Sports Club, because bringing thought leaders, decision makers together in person to address the challenges, to have thought-provoking conversations and panels, to meet each other, to present inventory opportunities is really what the club's all about. So this is just a couple of the examples from our panels at Cannes, to our WNBA brunch, to our club women's sports. Next year, we are absolutely planning a handful of different events, and we're going to talk about some of those now, but just thank you for attending, for helping us throw those events. They were a lot of fun, and we got a lot of positive feedback on them. Okay, so what's next? Let's talk a little bit about what we got planned for 2025, and then use some of this time to hear what you think about what we should be planning for 2025. So one thing we heard is that you kind of want the club to be a little bit more always on, especially when it comes to getting access to data points, to research, and to inventory opportunities. So one idea that some members have tossed back and forth to us is the idea of a digital community that could be always on. Maybe it's on Slack, maybe it's on WhatsApp. So maybe in the chat, or we can send out kind of a poll after this. Would love to know if that's something you're interested in. We know that these things require moderation. You only get out what you put in. Maybe you say, I don't have time for another community, or I would, but only if it were on this platform, or nah, just keep it in an email. So I'd love to hear from you guys, and happy to take a pause if anyone has an opinion on this. Is the idea of a Slack community or a always on digital community for our women's club members enticing to you? You think you'd participate? Or is it a nice idea, but you can't actually see yourself logging in? Any thoughts?
I'd love a Slack channel. This is Kate Verano from Zwift. I think it'd be really fun and a nice way to organize information and connections. Yeah, I'd be very interested.
Awesome.
Fully agree with you. Yeah, same.
Excellent. Thanks, Bree. Yeah, thinking through, and again, love to hear ideas even after this. What would need to be on there to make it valuable? Some thoughts that we had is inventory opportunities, events, also jobs, recruiting, I am part of another Slack community that has a really cool wanted channel where literally it's like, can someone help me figure out how to run a quick survey to 100 people? What platforms are the best and the cheapest? So just kind of sharing tips and tricks with each other. So would love to hear kind of your thoughts too on kind of what channel you would love to hear. Love it. All right, Monique, Odessa are in. Cool. All right, love this, guys. Thanks for the feedback. And love it, love it. Okay, great. Keep it coming. Excellent. All right, so we will give more information about that community and probably offer something a bit more formal for you to specifically tell us what would have to be true for this to provide value to you. Because we know even 5 minutes on Slack is 5 minutes you're not spending somewhere else. So please be specific. Tell us what you really want to get out of that community, and we'll see if we can make it happen. In person. So definitely want to continue our tradition of hosting some badass in-person events. Want to hear from you where you think we should be next year. One thing we thought was most successful is really focusing on the events where the dollars, meaning the buying dollars, are already showing up. So these are probably leaning more towards the industry event than the women's sports event. We also have some amazing community members from Together and Deep Blue and Just Women's Sports who are at most of the big women's sports, actual events, the championships and the kickoffs and the league launches. And we don't want to compete. And so for the club, we've found a lot of success in terms of attendance, deals getting made, introductions taking place, happening at things like CES or the New Fronts or Advertising Week or Cannes Lion. Again, more focused on where the media ecosystem is showing up. So as we're setting our 2025 calendar, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you going to be? Where have you gone? And you feel like women's sports was missing a voice. So we want to continue to push for the agenda to include the voices of women's sports and not just on another token like women's sports panel, which are great. I'll take those all day. But, for example, we're programming at CES in January, and we pretty much have a women's sports sponsor or league or team on every panel we're programming. So it's really important that we just have representation in the right conversation. And then we want to make sure that a lot of the big spenders and the brands and the right folks are coming to the right women's sports events. So let us help you. If you need the club's help with invites or to promote a women's sports event that you're having, a kickoff, a game, to really let them experience your product, I would definitely say not enough members take advantage of this. Like, let us create an email and let us do a targeted outreach from the membership base to the folks you want to invite and bring to your event. So reach out to us, let us help you get the right people at your events, and then let us share soon our schedule of 2025 events with you. But again, in the chat out loud, Super Bowl? Yes, Super Bowl really has become the new business. I know it's a party, but it's also business. So we definitely hear Super Bowl is where the club needs to be. So that's an interesting one. South by. So we did South by 2 years ago. We didn't do it this last year. And I agree. I think it's a great spot for brands and agencies. Oh, Women's Sports Club Village. I like the sound of that. Obvi. Yeah, NWSL Championship. There's so much going on there. We just don't want to take away attention. But we should make sure that brands and agency and the spenders who aren't currently sponsoring NWSL are showing up. I think there's still a gap there to get some of these bigger brands. Like, why isn't Taco Bell? I mean, at the NWSL Championship, some of these QSR brands, like, come on, folks, like, let's get them to show up. What else we got? Awesome. All right. So keep coming. Tell us where we should be from an events perspective, and we'll share our calendar. We're also going to facilitate some more private sessions. So we did this year. A lot of our Powered by partners could participate in this. But again, this is along the lines of using the club to help bring together decision makers. Do you want to host one? Are you having an event where you'd like to have the club do a private dinner or a breakfast and bring some of those decision makers let's collaborate on that. So yeah. Oh, anyone? Is that someone talking or another sneeze? All right. Let us know. We would love to help facilitate more intimate kind of discussions and, Chatham House rules, opportunities to go behind the scenes and bring decision makers, not just to network, but again, to talk about some of the ways and what would have to be true to really make bigger investments in women's sports. We're going to continue research. So we started the club anchored in data. We will continue to focus with key partners on creating the fan project. And we want to think about what could be next and want you to tell us, what type of research are you missing? Is it an exploration in OTT and the future of women's sports media rights? Is it how brands can better use data for measurement and attribution? We also just launched a media planning guide that has a very robust section all about women's sports media, specifically created to arm media planners with everything they need to start spending on women's sports in 2025. Should we expand on that and create a wholly dedicated planning for women's sports media 2025 guide? And if we have time, I can, share, here's a couple screenshots from the, it's called Winning Audiences. And hey, my team, if you could drop a link where they could download this, it's a free download. And it's got all sorts of awesome insights on how valuable the women's sports fan is, how much more they spend than the average fan, what communities they're part of that you should target, and what are some of the women's sports dedicated programmatic audiences that you can buy, how you can run them across social media. So we tried to take the guesswork out of it. We literally tried to create something that could bring the media planning and investment horse to water and help them drink, spoon feed it. And it's really awesome stuff. So that's an area you think we should be expanding on. We're data nerds and we want to create the research and the data to give you the case studies that you need, to provide the measurement and ROI that you need, and to create a path forward and create the business case that you need to secure investment or to make an investment. Jump into this chat to see if we've, oh, thank you, Hallie. That's awesome. Oh yeah, I would love to see them. Okay. And lastly, I'm going to kick it to Sarah to give you guys an update, maybe have a little discussion and brainstorm around the marketplace.
Thanks, Sheena. So as many of you all know, we launched the Trailblazing Marketplace at the NewFront on May 2nd, which feels like 7 years ago. But, and our hypothesis was that for many brands and agency partners, that we could bring value by bringing 3 different parts of the ecosystem together: the athletes, storytelling, media and content, and then properties and events. And so, of course, we want to encourage everybody to be buying the way that works best for you, but we did think that we could achieve scale by bringing all 3 things together, that we could be that expert and bring efficiency to that process by bringing all things together. And so we spent the summer really doing roadshows and talking to a lot of brands and agency partners like you all on this call about that. And we are happy to report that as of this last few months, we've had some pretty great partnerships that are really coming across all 3. And so we feel really great about brands coming in and coming to Trailblazing and working across the women's sports ecosystem. Again, we want to encourage, brands and agencies to spend wherever and however it works best for you. But if we can be a resource and bring these different aspects together and work with our agency partners to bring new ideas to clients, we will have done our job, and our company is fulfilling our mission at Trailblazing. So we are excited for that. We have somebody just put CTV in the chat. I didn't see what it said, but we are going to be launching some new CTV opportunities next year. So we're excited to share that out with you as well. And then if you do represent content or a property or athletes or a collective of athletes, please reach out to Trisha Lasky and myself, and we'd be happy to talk to you about ways in which you could be a part of the marketplace. And we do all this with our partners at Sports Innovation Lab, because what we do is we take, and we have had some success with this, we take these big ideas, and then we also leverage what Gina just talked about with the audiences that SIL has curated that you really cannot find anywhere else. And we overlay them onto the overall plan. So it just strengthens the plan, it grows the plan. So we're reaching more eyeballs, and we feel good about the momentum we have going into 25. So excited to work with more partners, more brands, more properties, more media companies, and work together.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Awesome. So we probably aren't going to take up this full hour. We definitely want to hear from you guys. And I see Ange joined. So Ange, why don't I kick it over to you? I know you wanted to say a few words and maybe kick off our discussion that's really focused on what questions are you still trying to answer? How is your sports strategy evolving next year? And where can a club really provide more value to you, and especially through the lens of our data, our audiences, and the focus on women's sports media performance and scale. So Ange, are you with us?
I'm with us. Unfortunately, I'm not on video, but wanted to just kick off. Thanks, Gina and team. We've had a really amazing year this year. We started the Fan Project about 5 years ago, trying to convince the world that there was a business for women's sports. I think the world knows that now, which is really exciting. I want to thank everyone on this call because, without your investment, your interest, this club wouldn't exist, but also the momentum that we see in the women's sports market, I don't think it would be where it is today. And something as simple as I see Scripps is on the line. I mean, taking that, saying we're gonna invest in the WNBA and we're gonna do it in the right way. We need partners in this club that are doing that are taking the bull by the horns and accelerating change, making those investments. Again, we just hope our data and some of the research that we put into the marketplace has enabled you. That's the goal of the club at the end of the day. The relationships are the goal, so you can get stuff done without us. So yeah, I just want to say thank you, just a gratitude across the board. I'm so excited at where we are with women's sports, so excited for the athletes, the fans, and all of us that are working in the business of sports. So I'll turn it back, but yeah, I would love just to hear more on what do you want this club to be? There's a lot. The good thing is everyone's coming into women's sports. I am so excited. What can this club uniquely do? There's a lot of clubs popping up, a lot of discussion groups, a lot of research centers. We're excited. We're not the only ones at the party anymore. Like, what could this club do uniquely in 2025? And Gina, I think teed up a couple of opportunities, but one, feel free to jump in. How can we be helpful? Or two, just share your success stories at the end of the year. You might have some gratitude as well you want to share with the group. So those are the 2 points I would love to hear with the remaining time. It's just, what do you want to get out of this that hasn't already been done or should be done in 2025? And two, success stories that you want to share amongst each other. That was probably my favorite part of last Women's Sports Club call. It's all the momentum that's happening. And I'll start calling names. Even though I'm driving, I can see who's on this call. Yeah, Asya, give us your news.
Hi guys.
Hi, Asya.
Hi. Thanks first of all of you for putting this together. It's so great for the whole community to come together. I guess our news, for those of you who don't know me, I run a fund called Muse Capital. We're a pre-seed, seed stage consumer tech fund. We invest in future of how people care, live, and play. So we're very, very big in women's healthcare and all that good stuff. But we also have a parallel platform called Muse Sport, where we invest in one-off league and team opportunities. And over the years, we've invested in Sports Innovation Lab. Yay. We invested in Washington Spirit just before Michelle took it over. We invested in Miami Pickleball. We invested in a tampon company for athletic women or active women, which is basically all women everywhere. It's like, surprise, surprise, finally a tampon that fits us called Sequel. Anyway, and then last September, this last September, we invested into SailGP, which is Larry Ellison's Formula One of sailing. We bought a stake into the US team. And what's really interesting about Sailing Grand Prix is that it's an emerging sport technically, because it's been around only for, it's going into its 5th year now. But it's both men and women on the same team, which I think is just awesome, considering that we're always thinking about like women only or male only. I think women and men on the same team is a pretty awesome message to give. So I love that about it. And also it's powered by nature because it's sailing and wind. And the good news that Angela was encouraging me to share is that after a year worth of negotiating, Muse Capital, Muse Sport is now closing in the next 6 days the majority acquisition of SailGP Italy, the Italian team, which is pretty massive. It's the first majority acquisition that Muse Sport has done. I'm Italian, and I won't go into the details of the deal and hijack this entire thing, but we are closing it up with some pretty mega people, and it's like 5 days away from closing, which still to this day I don't know how that's humanly possible, but the lawyers seem to think it's happening, and it's pretty awesome news. So I wanted to bring it up to you guys in case anyone wanted to learn more. And even put in a small check. I am reaching out to all of my people this week to do a friends and family regroup, but it's time we make these deals available to us and not just the big shot private equity dudes. So anyway, sorry to
That's
private equity
incredible.
dudes.
No, that's incredible. You never know where that next check is going to come. We've also done a bit of research in our data on SailGP, and you know, it's a big trending opportunity. The sustainability aspect to the sport is absolutely mind-blowing. There's a lot of kind of like sustainability washing going on out there. Like, this is legit. The commitment is unbelievable, and the fan response and loyalty to the sport and interest in the sport to attract a Gen Z fan is just really unparalleled. And I think their sustainability and just their brand equity has so much to do with it. And the co-ed, you know, we watched some of the fantastic results and growth of leagues like World Surf. I think, you know, co-ed is just, you know, it's just incredible. And a lot of people are hungry for it. So congrats.
Thank you. I have the scars to prove it.
Amazing. Who else has some news or some asks for the club? All right, Kate.
Hi, I'm Kate Verno from Zwift. Zwift is a cycling video game that came on as title sponsor for the first women's Tour de France in the last 30 years. So we've been the title sponsor now for the past 3 years. And if anybody doesn't know, the men's Tour de France started in 1903. And there was like one women's Tour de France in like the 80s that was never really televised. And so we finally got a proper Tour de France stage race. This year, the race was the finish of the race was the closest Tour de France in the history of the race, men's or women's, which was super exciting. The winner won by 4 seconds, which is like unheard of. So it was absolutely incredible. One of the things that I definitely need help with in the future, and we'd be looking for kind of help from, I think that cycling needs to learn a lot more from other sports. There's a very controlling entity in cycling, ASO, who owns the Tour de France and all the rights. And, you know, kind of working with like league owners or, you know, like around rights and stuff as a title sponsor, feeling like they're almost getting in the way of the success sometimes. And it's really frustrating. So I'd love to, you know, if there's ever case studies or anything around like how to, you know, better manage that relationship or kind of, you know what I mean? It's like, it's at such a great place, but there's, yeah, it's still kind of, it's not innovatively thinking like a lot of the other women's sports that are leading the charge right now. It's sort of still stuck in like the men's model.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's something that Sports Innovation Lab can assist with, and we can provide insights around. So a lot of the work that we do with properties in our insights reports is helping them think about categories based on fan spending. So the more you know about your fans and how they spend and what categories they buy and brands they buy, the more you are empowered to create categories and draw lines and create places to play for different sponsors and bring those sponsors data and insights that kind of makes them feel more comfortable with the position they have in the league and their sponsorship and what they do versus, you know, other sponsors. So if there's any like data or insights or research we can help with, if there's anyone on the call, other properties who have dealt with this and can provide case studies or guidance, this is an awesome one for like a Slack conversation. I could totally see us kind of chatting about this. Please reach out to us, reach out to Kate. If you don't know Kate, we'll get you to her because we got the directory. So I love that. That's really interesting.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Who else has got something they need, something they want to share? Kimberly.
Yes. Hi, folks. My name's Kimberly Kershaw, and this is my first call. So I'm very, very grateful to chime in here and listen in and receive all this information. It's been really helpful to us with Pro Volleyball Federation. The research, you know, certainly, of course, has helped us in our launch through last year and going into this season. I did want to share that we just announced, if you haven't seen it, our All-Star game in February 22nd, which will be live on CBS Sports. There's a lot of opportunity there, you know, for categories that we're talking about. I also want to just mention, I'm based in Columbus, Ohio. Sorry about my dog. I spent over a decade with the Columbus Blue Jackets in the NHL, which is the same arena that the Columbus Fury, one of our teams, now plays in. Of course, like this, the Amazon drivers here. Of course,
You sound fine. We can hear you. We can hear you good. You're good.
So with the Columbus Fury, which is one of our Pro Volleyball Federation teams here in Columbus, I do a lot of work with them simply because they're in my market, or I'm in their market. That team, I just wanted to share that there is a percentage of ownership available for that team. We've had some change in ownership with it. Joe Burrow, who's quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals, his parents and himself are involved on the minority level. But if anybody wants information on that, if anybody has ideas or suggestions or anybody that thinks we should be connected with, there's a lot of opportunity with that franchise. Last year, the Columbus Fury had the second highest attendance in the league behind Omaha. You know, a lot of sponsorship opportunity and whatnot. Our athletes are amazing. They're all world champion, Olympians, All-Americans, really the best volleyball athletes in the world. So I just wanted to share that, introduce myself, and say thank you for all this information because it truly is very, very helpful.
Thanks, Kimberly. Welcome. We're happy to indoctrinate you into the club. Listen, women's volleyball, fastest growing youth sports in America. So we are just absolutely seeing volleyball explode. We're watching it in our data. We're tracking merch. We're tracking youth sports clubs. We're tracking federation and governing body memberships. And every month over month, our volleyball community in our data set is growing. So it's just really proving the case that there is just a ton of inbound interest and it is not slowing down. So let us help you with some of that data. Yeah, if anybody knows anyone interested in the Fury or that sounds like it could be a good connect for Kimberly, please reach out and we'll help facilitate that connection.
Yeah, it definitely here in this region too, Ohio Valley volleyball, the Ohio Valley region is the largest in the nation. I've been involved with this since the beginning, about 4 years ago, putting this launch together. And that truly is what made us decide to take that step to launch because of media. We were watching television quite closely. And, once that data became evident that women's volleyball is the most watched sport on TV behind men's football and men's basketball, that tells you a lot. So, and collegiately. That tells you a lot. So yes, the data is there, the popularity is there, the opportunity is there, and I'd love to talk to anybody that would like more information.
Amazing. Steffi,
Hey,
good to
Gina.
see you. Tell us what you're up to.
Yes, hi, Gina, Angela, and everybody else on the call. Well, I kind of want to put some food for thoughts in here because I come at this in a little bit different way by leverage the industry I'm involved with. So just a little background for the ones that don't know me. I'm a 3-time women motocross world champion. So I raced motorcycle in my life, and I'm very much involved in motorsport as a whole. And of course, to open doors and create pathway to participate for more women. Because if any one of you ever saw Formula One or Drive to Survive, will know that there is not a woman on that starting gate grid. So we are doing all of this by involving a different way, by using sim racing, so digital competition. And now the one of you that have heard that they're going to be the eSport Olympics, guess what? The one that is dealing all of that for the girls and sim racing, this one. So the whole goal here is to try to leverage the opportunity from eSport, which includes millions and millions of dollars that the Saudi are putting toward to be able to give women that are interested in motorsport to represent Team USA, to go at the Olympics, win the money, and then founding their motorsport career. So it's a little bit of a different ride around, but it's I feel like a clever way to try to tilt the needle in a sport that has been historically, more male dominated. So if you want to learn about it, we also go in school, to teach the programs. We've been featured on NBC News just 2 weeks ago. So that was a very big yay. So if anybody's interested in motorsport and want to learn more, I'm your gal.
And Steffi, just educate me. Is this for the LA Olympics?
No, this is from the eSport Olympics. So
eSport Olympics. Okay. Is eSports making it into the Olympics?
Yes,
is that
so I'll just give you a quick rundown because I don't want to take a lot of time. So at Paris, at the Summer Olympics this year, they were announced the eSport Olympics. So the eSport Olympics is a third vertical. So there is the summer, the winter, and now the eSport Olympic. Another thing, food for thoughts here, the eSport Olympic, they're going to be divided in course, traditional esport, if you have heard like the League of Legends, Fortnite, all of that, but also simulation sports. So sim racing is part of that, but it is also the virtual sport like WNBA, FIFA, you name it, or virtual. And what we are trying to push there is the fact because in the Rio Olympic, finally, we got equity, like 50% female participation. We're going to make that trend in the eSport Olympic as well. So anyway, if anybody wants to learn more, I can share a lot of information, but it's just a way around it to try to find the money to support women in sport, basically.
Love it. That's incredible. I think a lot of people are going to reach out about that. Okay. We are coming up to the end of our meeting, so I just want to quickly remind everybody what is, good old Zoom, a few final kind of food for thought and what I want to make sure that you guys don't forget that you have access to through this club. Nope, that's the wrong screen. It's going to be this one. Okay, so before you leave today, do not forget your club resources. Take advantage of them. Number one, our next kind of opportunity for in-person, if you're going to be in Miami in January, maybe you're coming down for the Unrivaled launch, join some of the members of the Women's Sports Club, Unrivaled and Wise for networking around the time of the league launch. reach out to me or the Women's Sports Club email address if you're going to be in the Miami, South Florida area, and we will get you details on that networking event. Also should shout out if you're going to be at CES. The club isn't doing anything big and formal at CES, but as I mentioned, Sports Innovation Lab is programming at CES. And we are making sure there is club and women's sports representation. We are working with Scripps on that. So shout out Scripps is going to be part of an amazing panel on sponsorship with a focus on women's sports and sponsorship measurement and success. Want to make sure you're invited to those panels. So reach out to us for the schedule on CES. Do not forget to download our 2025 media planning guide. If you would like a deep dive with our analysts, we're happy to walk you through that media planning guide. And as I mentioned, there's a whole section dedicated to women's sports and how you can start thinking about integrating programmatic audiences, data, and women's sports content into your 2025 media plans. Don't forget our fan project reports. We will have another one in 2025. If you have something, and I got a couple great chats that you want us to focus on in 2025 for that, let us hear it. But all of these reports are always available to you. So those links are here. If you want to co-sponsor an event with us in 2025, we'd love to hear from you, whether that's a private dinner, another WNBA brunch. We're always looking for partners. Without our Powered by partners, this club would not be possible. So looking for continued brand agency publisher partners who want to kind of co-host these events with us. And then make sure to visit the Trailblazing Marketplace and book a roadshow with Sarah and her team as well. As she mentioned, they have a lot of new inventory opportunities and really want to make sure you guys are aware of all the different opportunities to buy into women's sports. And there's probably 10 other things I mentioned on this call. So reach out to me, reach out to the club. We want to hear from you. We want your feedback. We'll send a more formal survey to get some of that feedback for 2025. But thank you. As Ange said, would not be possible without you guys. So let's keep pushing, keep accelerating that spend on women's sports, keep moving that benchmarking survey up and to the right, and have a wonderful holiday. Take a nice break, and we'll see everybody again in 2025. Thanks, club. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, team.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Great
Gina.
call.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Gina.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.